Welcome to Criminal Chimes, a comedic true crime watch-along podcast where we watch Criminal Minds, all 15 seasons, and discuss the true crime that can be linked, however indirectly, to the episode. We're your hosts, Stacey Johnson and Veronica Shea, and this week we're joined by Emma Oliver in discussing Season 2, Episode 13, No Way Out.
There, but now we're the poop eaters. Come.
He'll grow out of it.
Thanks for being here, Emma.
That's cool.
Okay, we are talking about... We are on episode 35, season 2, episode 13, No Way Out. It is set in Golconda, Nevada.
Yeah.
Which honestly does not get enough love, I think, in the world. Good old Golconda.
I had to look
Nevada.
it up and see if it was a real place.
Really? You've never... Oh, I've driven through
I've
Golconda.
literally never been. And I live here my whole life. And I was like, what the heck is
Have you been to
Golconda?
Winnemucca?
Yeah. Then I've been to Golconda.
Well, no. Have you been to Elko?
Yeah. Been to Elko.
Then you've driven through Golconda.
Oh.
It's
Cool,
just
thanks.
outside Winnemucca on the way to Elko.
Oh.
Anyway, Nevada. There is no reason anyone needs to go to Golconda.
Truly.
And this episode tells us why. All right, we're in Golconda, Nevada. The BA is already there. We're in an old-fashioned diner talking to Frank, who is obsessed with names and whose mom was a whore.
Autistic. Well, the first part.
Yes, okay. Not the mom being a whore. Could you imagine if that was the link?
Oh my god.
That made me think
They
of Mean Girls. Your mom's a whore.
Oh.
Anyways,
Great.
move on. I don't want to talk anymore.
They give a detailed profile of a sexual sadistic serial killer that matches Frank exactly. And he tells Gideon that when he's done with his strawberry milkshake, Gideon will get what he came for. But ultimately, Frank is walking out of the door and they're going to let him. There's a bus full of missing children and a missing sheriff. It appears that Frank has been killing for 30 plus years, dropping bodies in remote areas near Interstate 80, abducting and killing quote unquote throwaways. He has over 100 bodies. He's been using an Airstream trailer as a kill room. The victims were alive when they were dismembered. He prolongs their lives by cauterizing the wounds. He keeps them sedated but awake with ketamine, and they're dismembered under a mirrored ceiling, so they see everything that's happening. Now, there is also a town crazy lady who has a whistle, and we're going to find out that this whistle is made from human bone. Her name is Jane, and she thinks she was abducted by aliens and tested on, but it was Frank, and she survived because right when he was about to kill her, she looked into his eyes and was like, I wasn't afraid anymore. And because she wasn't afraid, he couldn't get it up. He gets off on fear and he let her go. And now he thinks he's in love with her, but they said that sexual sadists can't feel love. And they kind of talk about love chemicals, which can also be found in chocolate and peas. Reed and Prentice really geek out on that. Frank wants Crazy Jane and ends up abducting the sheriff. And so he decides to set up a trade, the sheriff for Jane. And meanwhile, over at Jane's, all of her wind chimes are made of human rib bones, which Frank has left for her.
Many.
She has so many.
many. It's more than 100.
Well, think about how many ribs everyone has.
Well, I thought he took one. Did he take more?
Well, it's quite a lot of I don't.
It's so because I thought he took one from each person, and then they show 40 wind chimes, and I'm like,
and it's just honestly, it's too many wind chimes for one porch, whether or not they're human bone.
How many wind chimes is too many wind chimes? That's the question we should be discussing today.
multiple wind chimes were very, very popular in small town South when I was growing up, and my grandma had 6 or 7. It was too many.
That's a lot.
That was
too
the
many.
cap.
Yeah, I would say 3 might be pushing it. In the same area, that's a cacophony.
It depends on if they're tonally similar, I think. If they sound nice together, the more the merrier.
Truly.
That's how orchestras work. Can we pause for a second?
Yeah. So he's left her far too many wind chimes. No matter what you think the number is, it's more.
Mm-hmm.
And they find the sheriff in his murder trailer, and now they need to present him with Jane to get the location of the children who have been left out in the desert. And that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank takes Gideon to the children and then leaves with Jane. And that is our episode.
You explained that way better than the episode did, I think. It was a little convoluted.
I think, Emma, that your ADHD stops you from fully watching, and also timelines get a little... So I might say that while the show does have some faults, that might not be one of them, and that might be on you.
It was fine. I wanted to go back to Jane for a second because
Yes.
you were talking about like she thinks she's been abducted by aliens.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that she hasn't. We don't know that she's had the worst coincidence of any human ever where aliens abducted her and did the exact same thing. We don't know.
Or maybe she's been abducted twice. You know, they say like
Yeah.
once victimized, you tend to be victimized
It
again.
just happens again. My great aunt has been struck by lightning like 6 times because once you're struck once, you're like more conducive to it.
6 times?
It's too many.
Stop
Yeah.
going outside in the rain.
I wouldn't. I would be good.
I have an uncle that got hit by lightning once, and then he died. But
I don't know what
From
it
the
is.
lightning?
no,
Oh, okay.
drugs. But that's another story.
Well, you wrapped it into the same one, so I don't know.
Same thing. Yeah. So that's so maybe Jane has just been like actually repeatedly abducted.
I mean, very possibly. And that could have also turned her crazy. The multiple abductions. She finally just broke. Or because she's crazy, she's an easier target to abduct.
Yeah.
So this one, we got really angry Shamar for all of it, right? Because he was like with Gideon in the diner being like, tell us where the kids are. I was into it though. He was standing the whole time. He was very
Absolutely.
aggro.
Gimme more.
So we have this photo.
Veronica and I watched the episode together, and there was something so wonderful about being behind the scenes of her being like, what was that time mark? Like
For the give me more so I could go and screenshot them later. I was like, what was that? Okay. I have to jot it down and then go find them.
yeah, she would
That's
just be
so
like,
funny.
ooh, what was that? It was so like
And that was the one we got.
So good.
mhm.
So
I think
sexual.
truly, I think any of the screenshots of him. So my progress of Shamar Moore has been, I don't get it, I kind of get it, and I got it this episode.
Yeah.
He walked in and I was like, it's weird that he's making that face right now because it's hot, but they're like actively pursuing a serial killer.
You're like,
I
but
was
I
like-
am turned on.
Yeah, I was like, why is he
Yeah.
sultry in this very
Hell
intense
yeah.
situation?
Feeling things.
Hell yeah.
I was like, what are we communicating to the youths with this look?
The youths. I'm going to give him a 3 on this one.
Not it.
But
What?
But you don't like it when I do halves.
Well,
'Cause
no.
I
In no
want to
way.
give him a 3.5 because
No.
he's not quite. Veronica, if you could be better. Thank
I
you.
think about him in the episode as a whole.
Yeah,
Like,
if
he's
I'm
very
thinking about
attractive in the episode as a whole.
yes, if I'm thinking about episode as a whole, 4.
Mhm.
This moment
Bad screenshot.
is a 3. Shut up! And now I feel I gotta go. It was nice knowing you too. Love you so much. I'm gonna take my coffee and leave.
Wow.
I will actually agree with Stacy. I think he was way more when he walked in this episode. I was like, damn. And I was like, I thought you were gonna say
get a screenshot of him moving.
yeah, I thought you were gonna say first frame. I was like, damn.
uh-huh.
I was like, hey, no, I agree. He does have to be
Stacey's-
stationary.
Stacey, you get to get the next Give Me More. And we'll see how you do.
I don't want to. You do so good at it.
Oh,
You're
do I?
actually so good and amazing
You're
at
actually
screenshotting.
very good at screenshots.
Fuck you guys.
Yeah, but I agree with Stacy. I think a 4. I think he's not particularly nice in any of the episodes I've seen in him, and I like a nice boy. That would get me to a 5, but I was like, damn, that's a man in there.
Well,
Veronica, what
I'm
about you?
giving him a 4. I'm into it. I'm into the stubble. I'm into the jawline. I'm into the side eye. I'm into the cheekbones. Yes, yes, yes. Here for it.
Hell yeah.
But Kristen is going to come on and talk with us about love chemicals.
Love
and who can feel
chems.
them and who can't.
What do you think about the eye contact turning him off? It's like typical man behavior.
Well, I don't think it was the eye contact. It was the no fear.
I think I would still be nervous. Is fear
With
and
aliens?
If it was the aliens, I would make eye contact and be scared.
She
But with
said
a
that she
white
felt calm.
Mm-hmm. What does that look like?
I think your pupils dilate. Something about the pupil. Her body relax. I don't. What do you? Do you not know what calm is, Emma? Do you live your life in
I don't know.
anxiety.
Yes, that's why. Even with Lexapro, I'm still a ball of mess. I'm like, ugh.
God, this is why your guys' dogs are the way they are.
It's true. This is why my dog eats poop.
I know you had a hot take on strawberry milkshakes.
Oh yeah, all psychopaths drink strawberry milkshakes. If you have a preference for a strawberry milkshake, flag them. Put them on the FBI's most wanted list. Stacy.
Is that you, Stacey?
I love strawberry milkshakes. I don't like chocolate and I don't like vanilla. But if you give me a Neapolitan shake from In-N-Out, I'm all about that life.
My favorite part was when he poured more strawberry milkshake in. I was like, why is this such an intimate gesture? Refilling my milkshake.
Oh my
There's
God.
a serial
That's what I'm going to
killer.
start calling it. Hey, babe, you want to refill my milkshake?
And what will you mean?
I don't want to talk about it anymore. Where's Kristen?
Okay, so in this episode, they talk about sexual sadists not being able to feel love, and because they can't produce love chemicals, which they also mentioned are found in peas and chocolate.
Okay, so not quite.
Go for it.
I think I know what they're trying to get at with that. Okay, so I looked at there's this prevailing theory of love and how you experience it in the brain.
Ugh, tell me about it.
How's your long-term relationship, Stacey?
It's great. I swear, everything's fine.
It was like, what?
Tell me about it.
First, she couldn't remember her name. Then she
I'm having
none
a
of that was
moment.
surprising to me. Yeah, none of that was surprising to me. Okay, so the prevailing theory right now essentially is that you experience love in the brain in 3 different ways. And the first way is lust. So that's sexual gratification, right?
It's a good spot.
Yeah, hell yeah. Woo, sex.
A fun one. Let's go.
Yes.
The fun love.
So this feeling of love is driven by our sex hormones, so testosterone, estrogen, and then that is mainly driven and regulated by the hypothalamus of the brain. The second way that people experience love chemically is what they call attraction. So this is when you're like attracted to somebody, you find them to be attractive in whatever way. So this also is regulated by the hypothalamus, and this is basically our reward system. So this is dopamine, and then I think it's norepinephrine. Am I saying it right? Yeah, norepinephrine.
Can't you get a shot of epinephrine?
Oh,
yeah, your
probably.
EpiPen is epinephrine.
Okay. So norepinephrine plays a role in like your fight or flight response, and it's what makes you feel like giddy and euphoric and like kind of sweaty when you like fall in love
Butterflies
with somebody. Butterflies was something separate, and I can't remember which one it was, but it wasn't norepinephrine. But yeah, I looked that up too. I can't remember which one it was. Okay, so then we have the attraction, which again is the reward pathway of your brain. So that's when you do things that feel good, dopamine gets released. So when you love somebody, that shit's getting released, feeling good. Then it also, in this attraction section, and in the hypothalamus, your serotonin levels will lower, which I thought was interesting because lower serotonin levels were correlated to people who have OCD. So they say that when you get kind of obsessed with a lover, they're sort of equating it to the reduced levels in serotonin. They don't know exactly why it makes people more obsessed, but like I said, linked to OCD, so they also link it to that kind of obsession feeling you have with people with love. So I think I have low serotonin levels. When I read that, I was like, all right.
You want to take some of my Lexapro?
Yeah. Wait, is that increased serotonin?
Yeah.
Stacey, stop offering your Lexapro to everybody.
I've done it twice today.
Have you?
Yeah.
Little drug pusher.
That's true.
Little drug
That's true. I
pusher.
do need it.
That's right. Okay, so the last chemical love category they're calling attachment. So this is essentially like bonding with someone, and this is what sustains you through the long-term relationships. So this also applies to friendships, it applies to family, it also applies to romantic relationships, but it's not necessarily romantic feelings, but it's like that bonding feeling. And that one is regulated by oxytocin.
Oxytocin.
Yeah, this one's
brain.
this is that. It's oxytocin. And they call that, I'm trying to be. That one they call the cuddle hormone. And that one is also regulated by the hypothalamus. So essentially all of these love chemicals, I think, are regulated by the hypothalamus, which comes into play later when I talk about what they found in serial killers' brains, because we're talking about love chemicals, which is the brain, right? Okay, so does that make sense? 3 different types of love, 3 different types of chemicals. Well, multiple chemicals, but 3 different kind of things going on there.
Okay, so like hypothetically, could you measure the chemicals in the brain to like figure out if
See
you're
how
in
much
lust
you
or
love
in love
someone.
with someone?
So they did that. That's how they kind of found this attraction category, right? Is they show people pictures of people that that person was in love with or found attractive, and then they could see what parts of the brains like really lit up. And I'm sure they can measure like hormones as well. I would think testosterone and estrogen, they do that all the time. Like by showing someone a picture, measuring their blood, like I'm sure, but oh my God, wouldn't it be fucked up if they had like couple tests?
Literally,
Is that
that's
what you're thinking?
Yeah, I was like, how fucked up would that be?
Yeah. I'm like, babe, your
I'm
estrogen's low. You're not in lust with me anymore.
You like show the secretary picture or whatever.
My God,
What a-
drama.
What a nightmare. Science drama.
It's going to be
I'm
a
part
new
of it.
Lifetime reality series next.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one. That's actually a really good idea, Emma.
Mhm.
Yeah, take it to the bank.
Okay.
Thumbs up. Calm down.
Call Hollywood, Emma.
I go to the bank teller. I'm like, I had
Direct
this
line.
idea. We have to blood test people.
Okay, so getting into, do serial killers feel love the way that we feel love, that the typical people feel love, right? They've done a lot of studies looking at the brains of serial killers, but none of them I could find were specifically focused on love. A lot of them are focused on empathy, regulating emotions, stuff like that. But none of them specifically are about love. And a lot of the studies had a very small sample size, 10 or under. So you can't really, extrapolate those numbers to the larger population. But there's one study, it's fairly recent, and it's been quoted a lot now. And it had over 800 inmates. And what it did is it looked at inmates who were basically murderers and inmates who weren't murderers. And it was over a 10-year span across different states. So the sample size is the largest of its kind for this kind of study. And what they found is that the people who have committed murders have less gray matter in their brain. And what gray matter does...
You had me for a second.
Listen, I can say it, but I feel like if anyone knows when they're listening, they're going to know that I'm doing it wrong. So I'm just going to read what it is. Gray matter is responsible for processing and interpreting information. So if you have more gray matter, it means you have more cells and more neurons and more glia. I looked up glia. It's too complicated. Look it up yourself if you want to know what glia is. But so you have more gray matter, you basically have more stuff to help process the information. And what they found is in the people who were murderers, they had less of this gray matter. So, they hypothesized.
This is stressing me out because now all I can think about is how much gray matter do I have?
Right. So they hypothesized that the people with less gray matter obviously have difficulty processing information because they have less neurons and all that. So it basically can affect many, many parts of your brain. But one of the parts that was most affected by the decrease in gray matter was a part of the brain that supports, now this is me putting these things together because no one talked about love. Yes, the hypothalamus.
The hypothalamus.
Yes. So less gray matter in parts of the brain that supported the hypothalamus, which is all the parts that chemically help us feel and experience love. So nobody said this. This is me just doing separate research and saying there is a possibility that people who murder do experience love in a different way because they got less brain stuff.
They got less brain.
Very
Yes.
technical.
Yes, they have less gray matter. And also something else that was pretty consistent across the studies is that people who murder have a underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, which has to do with controlling, I think regulating
Impulse.
emotions. Yes, stuff like that, which also is in support of the hypothalamus. So nothing I found directly said their hypothalamus was different, but there's lots of parts of the brain that suggested that things in support of the hypothalamus were affected. So the science doesn't say if they experience love differently, but it certainly, looks like there might be support for they don't feel love the way that we do because their brains are different. But also there are people with less gray matter and underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes who aren't murdering. So it's not causal, but it's
potentially
There it
correlated.
is.
Did you see that gray matter is supposed to make up 40% of the brain and white matter makes up 60% of the brain?
The white matter is what transfers everything. It's like
Yeah.
our little transferring system.
What if Stacy's is opposite?
And I'm
That's why
just
she's so
moving shit
special.
around at all times.
No,
No,
it's
less.
slower. You're moving less around. Well,
Oh,
Tested.
I don't want to do this anymore.
I always talk about how your Wi-Fi is just a little bit slower.
But she stores more stuff.
She stores more
so much
stuff. She stores an amazing amount.
Yeah. Yes.
It just
but the
takes
transfer.
a minute to get
It takes a
there.
minute to get there.
She's not on that 5G.
Oh no, that's why I laugh so slow sometimes.
Yes.
Oh no,
Ma'am.
am I a murderer?
Ma'am, if you could just laugh when everyone else
Everyone
laughs.
else laughs.
I'm panicking.
So good. But anyway, so that's what I found. Again, no direct research, but it certainly seems like, yeah, they're probably. And also the reward system of the brain, like where we release dopamine, I mean, that has a lot to do with your upbringing too, right? It's not all genes and genetics. So obviously these people have external factors that have created them to be a different kind of human. So I think their reward center is different. The things that they like that make them feel good are different because they murder people and they like it.
Mhm.
So I would think that the way that they experience love in that way is also different because the reward center is different.
Makes
But again,
sense.
yeah, exactly. This is just me spitballing. I know nothing about nothing. I read some articles. That's it.
I might cut that part out.
I read nothing about nothing.
No, I know nothing about nothing. I just
I think you
read a
should
couple
keep it
things.
in. Or just use it as like a
I think we should
soundbite.
remind our listeners that Kristen is a behavioral scientist.
Yes, I am. Yes. So this is the exact opposite of what I do. Neuroscience is not my thing. We are not about the brains or the chemicals. We're about what happens in the environment. And
But you
so-
can take that information and relate it to behavior,
Oh, absolutely.
which because you just did.
Yeah, but this one was love chemicals, so that's what I was focusing on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because that's the thing when they're like, oh, psychopaths, sociopaths don't care about anybody. I don't think that's true. They show that there's usually one or two people they care deeply for,
Yeah.
and whether or not it's how we would care about them. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, what if it's just we wouldn't use the word love for it? But it's hard because we're talking like chemically. This
Yeah.
is love. But yeah, I agree. Like
Yeah.
caring would look different, I think.
Right. It'd probably fall under that category of the attachment category, that long term.
yeah.
Because they said that can develop during breastfeeding or during just sitting with somebody. Like those develop during
Oxytocin?
oxytocin.
Yeah, I think
Again,
you're right.
see, it's in there. It
That
just
was
takes
it.
a minute.
I think she's 40% white and 60% gray.
Me too. That's fun.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was adopted, so I was like, I wasn't breastfed. Like, I'm like,
Oh.
uh-oh.
How's your attachment love?
Anxious, avoidant.
Okay.
I am anxious
Yeah.
avoidant also.
Uh-huh.
All right. Maybe you guys need some more oxytocin.
Yeah, that's
How do I
it.
Try
get
it.
that?
Could
Is
they
that a
use
street
that by
drug?
like Oxycontin? Is that the same?
It's like the same family. I have
I'm
no
Googling.
idea.
Perfect.
this.
We'll get you guys some Oxycontin. That's gone well for people.
Yeah, Stacy's like, you know what? We
Real well.
Stacy really pushing drugs today. Lexapro, Oxy.
Yay,
Oh my
drugs.
God.
I was like, Stacy, it's
Whole
11 on
podcast
a
dies
Saturday.
Seriously.
God.
Boom, baby.
We all died of fentanyl overdose because she gave us some shit. We're like,
Bro.
okay.
Side hustle.
I said
We'll
it was
take it.
Side
it was
hustle queen.
Lexapro. Lexapro, fentanyl. What's the difference?
The names for one, just for one.
I'm
Quick
gonna
one,
guess.
the
If I'm
names.
gonna guess.
God.
The result for two.
Not Stacy Googling if
I did Google how do I how do I generate oxytocin?
dude, you're on a
And
list
it said-
now.
I don't know.
What does it say?
Yoga, like it's all natural remedies, but I want to know what drugs.
I don't want to do yoga because my parents didn't love me. Like that's bullshit.
Can you imagine? Oh my god, just weeping in Downward Dog.
I salute the sun while I think of my adoption trauma. Like,
I got it.
What is
I
it?
got it.
does it say yoga?
No, it's
MDMA.
ecstasy. It's MDMA.
Ecstasy.
Well,
That absolutely tracks.
maybe if you added the word permanently.
That's interesting because then that makes sense because the people that you're with, like, because people who are on drugs seem to like the people that they're with, you know what I mean? And if you're increasing that attachment feeling, you're going to have that long-term bonding with them. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it releases dopamine, serotonin, neuroepinephrine.
These are all of the hormones we were just talking about.
Yeah,
in different categories.
I worry we're drawing the wrong conclusion right now.
I know.
I think the conclusion is shared experiences. If you can find shared hobbies.
Oh, I thought it was give serial killers MDMA.
I was just gonna say.
I was thinking that too.
I was thinking that too. We were all
Give
thinking
them the
that.
Molly.
Give
I
them the
meant
Molly.
how
See how they
to-
feel.
Make your guys' attachment issues. Find
Correct.
shared
So
shared
basically,
experiences.
Of doing
what gives the
MDMA.
most? Oh, did you know that?
Nope.
What gives the most oxytocin, though?
What is it?
What produces the most oxytocin for you is sexual intimacy.
Right back to fucking.
It says orgasm in particular is one key way to raise oxytocin levels and gives you like a lot.
Okay.
So,
Is oxytocin the
guess.
bonding hormone or no?
Yes, it's the bonding one.
Then why are
That
men
makes
cheating
sense.
so much? Because they're the ones having orgasms the most.
I was going to say, how do
Because
straight women do
testosterone
it?
overrides. Yeah.
there is
Straight women are just
What are they
Okay,
doing?
so
in love for stupidity.
if you don't want to take MDMA,
Which, why would you not want
these
to? But
are
okay,
these are ways to
nerd.
do it naturally. You can do yoga, listen to music, get or give a massage, tell someone how much you care. All things that Veronica loves. Spend time with friends. Meditate. Make your conversations count. Cook and eat with someone you care about. Cuddle or hug. Have sex. Do something nice for someone. Pet dogs. You could pet dogs, Veronica.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like
so,
that.
or we could all just take MDMA.
I
Alright.
hate when I Google something and like the treatment is everything I already do. Where it's like,
Oh, yeah?
my routine. like,
Oh.
In that order.
do it double time.
Well, I'm going to give you
Yeah.
a pass.
Thanks,
on that
bitch.
one.
I'm gonna pass you too.
That was
Thank
great.
I don't know what that is. Are we grading you on the research?
Oh yeah, you've never done peer research or peer review. In research, when you present your thing for peer review,
Mhm.
you're in front of a
Your
panel,
peers.
and they either pass you or fail it, and it becomes part of.
Oh, I see. I definitely thought it was a weird smash or pass thing, and I was like, that is wild to do to your long-term friend.
Yeah,
on
like
your
my fit today. Have my glasses.
It's like,
And we both pass. We're like, bye. And you're like,
tell
thanks.
you.
I
I
was
did
like,
tell you your brows look fire today.
Yeah, thanks for that.
it was. I believe you. I didn't do research. You can
that's okay.
Smash or pass, Emma.
That's not fair.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was like, you could have been lying the entire time. I don't know any of that information.
I know. She could
That's
come
true.
on here and bullshit all of us, and I would believe her.
That's probably
That's
our
true.
anxious avoidant
Implicitly.
attachment style.
It is. I need oxytocin.
Well, you know what to do now.
Have sex and then do drugs.
Hell yeah.
Kristen, thank you so much for coming on.
Sure, no problem. Hope you learned something.
I did.
I hope you were happy with your non-necrophilia, non-sex
Dude.
victim.
That shit
was
topic.
still
That
yeah,
messed
pops
me
into
up.
my
I
head.
still
Yeah.
think about the fucking frogs.
Yep. Yep.
I still think about the frogs.
Yep.
Emma, look it up and go watch our newest reel. Ugh, frogs.
It was
are
rough.
gross.
And I had someone the other day, they're like, oh, my uncle works in a morgue or whatever. And I thought,
He fucks dead bodies.
them. Statistically, he fucks them. Like, I didn't say that, but now I'm like,
You should have. You should have been like, oh, statistically, he fucks them.
We had a more.
And I walked away.
We had cadavers on my college campus.
did you?
Hmm
Oh,
Yeah, we had a
no.
mortuary science department on my college
Oh,
campus.
shit.
One time I went
Oh,
on a walk and I
no.
passed the moving cadavers in, and I didn't go on a walk on that path anymore.
Oh my God. Were they in a body bag or were they? Somebody fucks them.
Yeah. Oh,
Come on.
fucked. Yeah, those bodies are
Almost 100%.
I don't want to
banged
say
out
it,
for
but
sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to revisit this. Have fun with the rest of your. God.
Instead, I want
Hope
to
the
talk
rest of
about
this goes well.
strangling. Let's go. It's way better.
Yay for us. Happy.
All right, bye, Kristen.
Really good. See ya. Have a good podcast. Bye.
Bye, guys.
So speaking of love chemicals,
No.
change. No,
Bad
that's not how we're-
transition.
Transitioning cool. Okay, so Sam Little is the one that we tied to this case because they talk about Frank being the most prolific serial killer. Sam Little is America's most prolific serial killers. H.H. Holmes fans don't come for me. That man is barely a serial killer. I mean, he is not a fucking serial killer. We'll get into it with Parnell. I fucking hate H.H. Holmes. So the mass number, how many states, who he picked up, this is all very Sam Little. And so that's who we decided.
Yeah, and the
to go
interstate,
with.
too.
Yeah.
The interstate. Yeah, totally.
It's a lot. Sam Little is a lot. Okay. So Samuel Little McDowell was born in 1940. Essentially, Sam confessed to murdering 93 women between 1970 and 2005. So the FBI confirmed that he was definitely involved in at least 60 of the 93 murders that he confessed for. And essentially, this is being touted as the largest number of confirmed victims for any serial killer in the United States so far. Well, so far. I hope that's it, though.
Let's go with ever. Let's be
Let's
optimistic.
go with ever. Right. So Sam Little was born in Georgia. He claimed that his mother was a teenage prostitute who had abandoned him, and authorities believed that she might have given birth to him while she was in jail. Her name was Bessie May. She worked as a maid, and his father was thought to be a 19-year-old Paul McDowell. Soon after his birth, though, the Little family moved to Ohio, and here he was mainly brought up by his grandmother. During high school, he had a ton of problems with discipline and achievement, and this was all by his own records. They couldn't really find a ton of backing up information in the actual school's system, but this is basically his word. He said that he began having sexual fantasies about strangling women as a child. And he said that it started when he saw his kindergarten teacher touch her neck. As a teenager, though, he collected a ton of true crime magazines, and they were all mostly depicting women being choked out or being choked.
What a delightful phrase you decided to use.
Being choked out.
Been choked out.
Being choked out, no bigs. In 1956, after being convicted of breaking and entering in Nebraska, he was held in an institution for juvenile offenders. His mother was listed on the booking as didn't know where her whereabouts were. And then after he served out his sentence there, he moved to Florida, apparently with his mother in the late 60s. And then again, this is all by his own words. He was apparently working at various times throughout this period of his life as a cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant through that. Basically, I looked that up. He took the bodies from the hospital to the cemetery and did transport. He then apparently began traveling a ton and having a little bit more run-ins with the law. He was arrested in 8 states for crimes that included driving under the influence, shoplifting, solicitation, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and rape. He claimed that he took up boxing during this time in prison and started referring to himself as a former prize fighter, even though he had never gone into fighting
Honestly,
outside
manifest.
of prison. Yeah, like manifest your destiny.
Fake it till you make it.
Truly. So, in 1961, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison for this is great, for breaking into a furniture store in Lorraine. He was later released in 1964, so he was in prison for about like 3 years.
And
Yeah.
do what? Like break into a
Right.
furniture, like for 3 years?
Right. Yeah, my guess is that it was with intent to burglarize.
He's gonna
I'm
take like a
guessing.
sectional.
Maybe he just like really wanted to take a nap and like that's all that he could get into.
Maybe this is where
Right.
his passion for interior design was squandered.
Oh God, we did this to him.
This is our fault.
So
Hitler loved to paint.
and he couldn't get into art school. Anyways, moving on. By 1975, he had been arrested 26 times in 11 states, all for crimes that were similar to his youth, like assault, theft, attempted rape, fraud, and then attacks. This is my favorite. Attacks on government officials, including fights against cops and things like that. In 1982, he was arrested in Mississippi and faced charges for the murder of 22-year-old Melinda Rose, who had gone missing in September of that year. A grand jury declined to indict him for her murder, though, because while under investigation, Little was extradited to Florida and tried for the murder of another woman, Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was found in 1982. And because of that, they decided to not indict him on that murder because he was already serving out. I tried to do a little research further as to the why behind it, and mostly it was just that was what I was getting for that.
It's paperwork.
Mostly it was just paperwork, and they didn't want to do it because he was already being tried for murder in this and was going to serve out his sentence there. So witnesses during his prosecution for the murder of Patricia, they identified in court Samuel Little as a person who spent time with Patricia on the night of her disappearance. And during that, and just due to the mistrust of like witness testimonies, Little was actually acquitted for the murder in 1984. So there wasn't enough evidence to really nail him down. And I bet they really wish they would have tried him for the murder of Melinda in Mississippi, but
Yeah.
So after that, he moved to California, where he stayed around like San Diego area. Southern California was his vibe. He was actually arrested in October shortly thereafter for kidnapping, beating, and strangling a 22-year-old woman. She did end up surviving, so she wasn't murdered. A month later, though, he was found by police finally in the backseat of his car with another unconscious woman whom he had also beaten and strangled in the same location as the original attempted murder of Lori Barros, who was that 22-year-old woman who actually survived.
This was a weird part in the documentary that we
Yes.
talked about. They
Yes.
spent a lot of time on this one, but I think the wildest part is Samuel Little like talks about this one. They like interview him particularly. And he references, this is like the second time he'd really been caught in the act by police. Like, and the first time it happened, he had murdered her. He like had just finished murdering her like outside like a factory or something. And the cop went up to the car and looked in and saw the dead woman. And he's like, I guess the cop got embarrassed at seeing a naked woman because he didn't do anything.
Right.
Like
I don't
how bad do you have to be at your job?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to say that we as a justice system might have failed here, but I feel
I'll say
I think you can absolutely say that.
I think we can say we failed here because he got out multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, we just decided not to try him for the one murder, so we tried him for the other, and he was acquitted for, but like,
Well,
fudge.
and because people couldn't believe sex workers. And
Correct.
the cop didn't care because he assumed she was a prostitute. So,
What are you going to do? Paperwork.
like,
It's horrifying.
Exactly. So after this like attempted and murder, he only served 2.5 years for both of those crimes in prison.
Yeah, because his trial was weird. Because like one
Yes.
of the women was caught lying on the stand like immediately, and the other showed up drunk.
Yes.
And because she should be, I would be. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
she's earned
so absolutely, you are allowed to be drunk in court. Well, not really, but anyways, moving on.
victims
because
are.
Victims should be drunk
Yeah.
in court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Allowed to be.
So because of this, he was released 2 years later. He only served 2.5 years. In February 1987, he moved to LA and committed at least 10 additional murders.
5 months later, he's like, I'm back.
5 months
I'm
later,
back, baby.
and went hard and
Yeah.
committed at least 10 murders. He was finally arrested in 2012 at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, and was extradited back to California to face a narcotics charge.
Sure.
And
Because they didn't.
Yeah,
they
right.
had no idea where he was, and Kentucky is
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
from California. They caught him
correct.
cashing a check,
Yeah.
and he wasn't. How did he get there?
Now,
That's far.
here's my. Well, I mean, he always had a car.
Always had a
He was
car.
always driving around.
Always had a car.
But since we have moved away from paper money and checks,
Well,
should we go back? Because it feels like this is an easy way to catch.
you can
criminals
track.
that we're
You
looking
track the
for.
card now.
Yeah, you can track the card too.
But if you buy everything online, harder.
Fair.
Shipping
Yeah,
addresses.
I guess they could track your IP address too, like you're using it.
So you're advocating
anyway.
go back to
go back to paper
checks,
checks.
to be able to track
Go back
them
to
more
paper checks.
directly.
Yes.
So he made his way to Kentucky. He got extradited on a narcotics charge back to California, after which authorities did DNA testing and were able to establish that he was involved in the murders of Linda Alford, who was killed in 1987, Guadalupe Duarte Apodaca, who was killed in 1987, Audrey Nelson Everett, who was killed in 1989. All three of these women were killed and later found on the streets of LA. And they were able to finally connect him on that after they did that DNA testing. When he was charged in 2013, a few months later, the police said that he was being investigated for his involvement in 36 murders that he committed in the 1980s, which until like that moment, nobody knew that he was being
Investigated.
thank you. I couldn't think of the word. So, in connection with this, they actually ended up reopening the Mississippi case that he was not charged for and was tested for his involvement in 93 murders of women across the U.S. But they were only able to fully actually confirm 60 total, but they believe that he was involved in 93. Now,
60 is still so many.
it's astronomical.
It's a lot.
And still to this day, I think holds the most in U.S.
Convicted.
able to
Yeah.
be confirmed.
Well, and
confirmed
I
in-
don't think the 93 is like, sometimes they'll try to tack on all of the missing persons. And
Right.
I don't think that's the case here. It's that he can't remember their names. So
Right.
it's hard to then track them down. But he
Right.
gives such specifics and can draw them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just been drawing his. So we have 93 pictures of women, some of which have been identified from those photos.
Yes.
But it's hard when it's like, oh, it was around these 5 years
Mhm.
and I was in these 3 states. I don't know her name.
Right.
yeah.
And with like drugs and mental health issues involved,
Yeah.
like I can't even. We've been over. I can't even remember what I did like 2 minutes ago.
Dude, if you asked me
Well,
to name and draw 93 people, I couldn't do it.
No, I don't think I could.
93 is a lot.
I don't think I could list out. I don't know. I have a big family, but
And he's been like reliving it over and over every day, thinking of these women's faces. Like his recall was insane.
Truly, because he's
Yeah.
like 70 by the point he's like arrested, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
First off,
Yeah,
that's
he's old.
insane for a 70-year-old to be able to
Mhm.
do. I, as a 28-year-old, unlikely.
Yeah.
I don't have
So-
nearly that many victims. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway,
You have time, Emma. You have time. Get those numbers up, baby.
Oprah didn't have her own TV show until she was 40.
Oh my god. Okay, so he was found guilty in 2014 and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He died in prison, serving out his sentence. He, to the day of his death, insisted on his innocence and continued to say that he was innocent and didn't do any of it. Even though
What?
That's confusing because
Yeah.
he was like, I think he didn't feel like he should have been tried for it because he admitted
Yeah.
to he like admitted guilt, but
I
he was
know.
still like, yeah, but
He-
like it's not that bad.
exactly.
Yeah, it was. I think he was saying he wasn't a rapist. He didn't rape any of these women.
Oh, but he still, no, there were even a few women that he claimed he didn't do because, or wait, I meant to say kill, not do. Anyways, moving on. Because later on, he did confess to so many murders.
Yeah.
So many murders. But I'm like, where?
I wonder if he didn't feel they were like arrestable offenses.
I think so because a lot of them were sex workers and a lot of them were in similar situations of homelessness as himself. And so I'm wondering if he claimed his innocence because he just felt like it was okay because of who they were.
Well, didn't he say one of them he paid for it?
Yeah, that's what he
Like,
just
so
kept
it was-
saying. He was like,
yeah.
well, I paid for it. And I'm like, I don't think
Exactly.
So that's probably
I don't think
it.
that was
Exactly.
included in the $20 fee.
Yeah. His story is so wild. And for anyone who wants, like, there's actually a really good documentary. I do suggest buying it for the like $4.99 because it took Emma on a weird trip of
journey.
episode. Yeah, of like where you had
I
to
don't
go to see
It
it.
was weird.
But it's called The 93 Victims of Samuel Little.
Yeah.
And
rough.
it's very good. It's very well done. But it's just so crazy that like California caught him. And then through using VICAP, these two women analysts started pinging him to other unsolved murders.
Yes.
And then a Texas Ranger was like, let's go talk to him. Let's see what's happening. And then it just unfolded from there. And it's so wild.
So he admitted to more than 93 different murders in total. 60 deaths were formally connected to him by police, but he was only charged and convicted for 8 total.
It's probably because he died.
Well, no, a lot of them went.
They couldn't
I
be brought to
think-
trial.
I think they just said it's not worth it.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Paperwork
and
at that point.
He definitely, so most of them were prostitutes, drug addicts, or homeless individuals, and most of them were female. There were a few non-female presenting people in that group, but he did claim that he thought that these types of people would leave fewer clues for authorities and fewer people would want to look for them, basically. So,
And he wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, that's what the documentary kept saying is like he had been arrested so many times that he learned how to get away with things. He learned the kinds of people police didn't care about. And it's like, I mean, prison's wild. But like the fact that he like was able to learn now how to be better at being awful is also horrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Also, another thing I want to point out too is he had a long-term girlfriend for a while.
That's what I wanted to talk
Oh my
about.
God, yeah.
Yeah. So he
Is
had a
girlfriend the right term?
I think they said
woman
wife.
friend, elderly.
I'm not
friend?
sure. So I guess so.
The problem is girl. She
Right.
was so old.
Oh, absolutely. So
Hey, girls can be old, too.
Okay, so Her name was Aurelia Jean Dorsey or Dorsey.
Unfortunately, a beautiful name.
Beautiful. I love the name Aurelia. So she supported them both she was a big shoplifter for years. And when he was arrested in 1971, he was with his girlfriend at the time. And that was a different girl. So he was with Aurelia Jean Dorsey for like years. And then when he was arrested in 1971, he had a different girlfriend, Lucy Madero, and they were both charged with robbery at a gas station. And then while in jail, his girlfriend confided in her cellmate who this is where it gets convoluted.
I got lost here.
Yeah, who apparently was Dorsey, and that she would be testifying against Little in a robbery case.
So her cellie was Dorsey?
That's what I got. Either that or
They've met in prison. Like it's
yeah, they met in prison. She confided that her cellie, I believe, was Dorsey, and then in 1972, when the case went to trial, his girlfriend testified against, so Madero, Lucy, testified against Samuel, and then they were able to plan for it. Like his defense was able to plan for that attack against him because Dorsey, her cellmate, and also his next longtime girlfriend passed on information to his team what Lucy was going to say, basically.
Okay.
And eventually was found not guilty. And then Dorsey and Little were basically together until she died of a brain hemorrhage in 1988. And all in all, she was 27 years older than Samuel.
It's too bad that she didn't die sooner because she was his murder beard for a long time.
She was his murder beard.
yeah.
And she kept giving him fucking alibis.
Yep, exactly.
He's a good man. He could never do that.
Talk about women not supporting women.
She was anti-woman.
Dorsey.
Oh,
She's
absolutely.
anti-woman.
Or like so in her head, like gone about it.
Yeah, I think she was. I mean, honestly, I think she was just gone
Yeah, like
in her head.
It could
Yeah.
be a bad combination of both. We'll never know. But like, for like, they were
absolutely.
together for a long time,
Yeah, until she
multiple
died.
states. Like, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Who's with me?"
Like, okay.
Insane.
Yeah,
Insane that you only need
exactly.
one person for an alibi. Also,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it takes.
yeah,
It's
it's
one
like it was
person.
there with me. It's like, well, where were you?
Yeah.
Like,
Truly. So Little died in 2020 in an LA County hospital, even though the Department of Corrections didn't really list a cause of death on his thing. He did suffer from diabetes and heart problems and like multiple
like
other
COVID,
And he
probably
was old.
health conditions, and he was old.
Mhm.
So,
time to go.
yeah, exactly. So that is the story of Samuel Little.
It's like some of the story of Samuel Little. This one feels
I
like
know.
so.
Because there's so
Yeah.
many victims that you're like, how do I get into
And
that?
he like was moved to
Yeah.
Texas where he like drew everybody. It was like a whole.
Yeah, and the whole like drawings.
He just, like,
and
Yeah.
The,
So yeah, let's get into that. So he was sitting in prison in California when the Texas Ranger was like, let's go see what we can get.
Jim Holland, the cowboy.
And very smashable.
smash.
He's very sexy. He
He
went.
just like men with talent.
I do. And his talent is talking to psychopaths.
Talent to talent.
And he and the two VICAP analysts went and they had, all the information at their fingertips about who they thought he was going to be connected with.
Mhm.
And the Texas Ranger was smart enough. What was his name, Emma?
Jim Holland.
Jim
I remember
Holland.
because I thought he was dead during the documentary because they only showed the same picture of him for like the first half and then they cut to an interview and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like he's been alive this whole time.
This whole time. And like not old. He's not that
Not
old.
One picture. I was like, what's the budget on this thing?
Jim Holland was smart enough to know not to come in like guns blazing, right? And like see if Sam Little would lead where they needed him to go. And it came down to him knowing that he wants to talk about it because it's the, to him, it's the best thing he's ever done. And so he got a letter from the governor basically saying, if you confess to guilty to this one murder that we think happened in Texas, we are going to take the death penalty off the table. Mm-hmm. And like, that was it. And he was like, yeah. And then just started going off. And usually you see with killers who are just like confessing, they didn't do those numbers. Mm-hmm. And this guy could tell such specifics. Mm-hmm. And the one guy, oh my gosh.
One where he tried to trick him. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm like getting ahead of myself. Once word kind of got out where they were like, hey, we're going to call up Kentucky. Hey, by the way, can we get your cases for these 4 missing women? Mm-hmm. These 4 murders. We're not going to tell you who we have, but we need those specifics. Mm-hmm. And then once the so the idea that it's like only 60 and he just was inflating his own numbers. I think every woman he drew, he killed. And there are 93 portraits.
Yeah, they didn't even bring in potential cases. They just waited for him to talk and they would Google the names essentially.
Yeah. I really liked that where they were like, hey, Kansas, come on down. Don't bring all of your missing persons. That's not what this is. Mm-hmm. He's going to give you closure for these families. Mm-hmm. And if he talks about others, then we'll get into that. It's like, it was so smart on how they figured out how to handle him.
Such a unique case.
The worst part though, Stacey, you didn't even talk.
Oh, do you want me to talk about this part?
Yeah, Emma, you do it.
So I started watching this documentary and I had to walk away from it. And so I went into Veronica because when he was caught by the police in the middle of raping that woman, when he was on trial, I think it was the officer at the time was describing him. And he said 2 really insane things about him. One, he was built to strangle, essentially. He had hands that were made for strangling. This man had giant hands. And they showed his prints, and they were so big. Giant hands. And he's like my height and Veronica's height. Like, he's somewhere in between us. Yeah. And I'm like, those are like basketball palm and hands we talked about.
Those are like Shaq hands.
Yeah, they're huge on a 5'9" man. Big hands.
Yeah.
Big ass hands. And the other thing that he said, which was horrifying, is that when he was watching Samuel Little testify, he all down his neck it looked like he had just been flayed over and over again because he had these neck scars, we can presume, from women trying to escape him, and he just had years of scars down his
defensive wounds.
Down his neck that looked like he had been filleted. Insane. And they don't ever mention that again. And I'm like, that is one of the most,
it's like a throwaway,
true gruesome things that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But
truly, this man was just so
evil.
Yeah. And I don't even know how to, the way you could see the way that he talked about people, not even just women, but about people, just shows he has absolutely no regard for humanity, and he is just so about himself and
just immediate gratification.
So gross.
And
it's one of those where it's I'm very grateful that he was able to give all of these families closure, but not knowing more about his beginning origins is very interesting to me. Because I feel like they always go as deep as they can with these serial killers because they like want to like provide an explanation for why these people were
people
so
want to
bad.
know why evil exists.
And for him, we don't know a lot. Like,
we don't know.
Yeah.
and that's almost scarier to me because I mean, like, his father wasn't around and his mother was not providing, like, not able to provide. She was a young, addicted mother.
And he was like a runaway and on the road from a young age, right? Like 16ish.
Yeah, but he was still like in, like, he had teachers, like he was in school. He liked his kindergarten
that
teacher's
he wanted
neck.
to strangle.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, he liked his kindergarten
So like
neck.
by
It goes back
six,
to paraphilias.
By
of, like-
6, he was like, "Oh, strangling's my thing."
It has to be something to do with his gray matter. Like, that's literally all I can
Stacey's
think of
like,
now.
Well, I learned earlier today. I wonder if they did get his brain.
Ugh. Yeah, he's awful. But I do love how the documentary made it. The story is about those 93 women.
It's not about him at all.
And it's not about him. And
I
it's
love that.
about the men and women still to this day trying to close the cases even after he's dead, to try and find these nameless women that they now have the faces for. And they're still looking. It's a really good documentary.
Yeah.
So yeah, his case is crazy. He is the most prolific serial killer in the United States.
And what's crazy to think about it too is like he killed them with his
It's
hands.
so
His bare
intimate.
hands.
He killed that many people with his
Yeah.
bare hands.
Yeah, like Emma came in and was like, oh, with VICAP, because they check off one of the big things is method. And she was like, he was the only person strangling. Like, how is this a thing? But chances are he was the only person strangling with his hands.
Got them
That's so hard
big hands.
to do. It's so hard to do. It's so intimate. It takes a long time.
Yeah. It takes like a few minutes.
Yeah. A few minutes after they pass out. Oh, and there were some victims whose hyoid bone was
Shattered.
dislodged.
Yeah.
I mean, the strength in this man's hands. He should have been a rock climber.
Baker. We talked
Yeah.
about it. Could have been a baker.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Big
Could have
dough.
made a lot of bread.
Coulda needed a lot
Could
of
have been a
biscuits.
pizza maker.
Oh,
So
he
many
would make
things.
Big ass pizzas.
He could make the world's. He could have. Ugh.
made the world's largest pizza.
Easily. With
He
his
just
big ass
said-
fucking hands.
He chose his fate
Yeah.
and the fate of 93 women.
And that's another thing we talked about. 93 that he can remember.
Yeah.
Like 93 insane amount to remember. You're telling me he didn't
Yeah.
forget? What, like
Right.
you don't think he made it to 100? Like, that's insane.
Yeah. Wouldn't you go for 100? Like, wouldn't you try to close that gap? You think he was like keeping score?
No, he
Yeah,
wasn't, because they were talking about that where he would be like, there was 4 over here and then maybe 10.
Yeah, he
like,
was trying to remember how many were in each state he was in, which was very funny.
yeah, he did it
And
by
how he remembered
state.
time by cars.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh, yeah, I was driving a van around that time. And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I agree. Like, if he had been keeping track, 100's right there.
I'm a perfectionist. I would
100's
probably
right
want to
there.
go for the 100.
It's just right there. He could have had a better serial killer name if he made it to 100.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Agreed.
We were workshopping some names like the
We talked about like
What was it?
century killer.
Centennial.
Ooh, centennial killer.
the
Centennial
serial
Strangler?
killer.
If he
Centennial
was-
Strangler.
if he was bi, he could be the bicentennial man.
Well,
This
and I
is
was right. This is why we think Stacey has less gray matter, more white matter.
Yeah, but I don't even think we've said this. Fucking Samuel Little was black.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention.
Like, he was a black man. I almost don't even want to talk about it, but that one mugshot, man.
Mm-hmm.
He looks good in that one mugshot.
His first mugshot is
He looks good.
sexy, and every mugshot after, it's like, what happened to you? Evil. Evil is what happened to him. No, but it does go to show that, like, serial killers are everybody. They can be anybody.
Well, that's something I wanted to talk to you about, but I forgot how to say it. I was kind of surprised that people weren't mistakenly put away, or if they were, they didn't talk about it. Because, like, it's
For his crimes.
for his crimes. Because if you just say a black man in the South did
Right.
this,
Well, also to think about again the victims, the type of
That's true.
victims. I hate to say it, but did law enforcement really care to go further on a lot of these? Or, with lack of evidence, were they just whatever?
Because that is something too, like, yes, they are all sex workers, but I do think we have to talk about, with all cases, a lack of evidence eventually will put you into cold case. And there's only so much you can do because more murders are going to come in with more evidence and you just jump onto the next one. So
didn't they say, this is what, again, with the documentary, it was wild because it was like they had DNA, like he left DNA evidence everywhere.
That's how California got
They
him.
just like, didn't they say like they directly connected him to like 30 cases with DNA evidence and the rest they were just like, he knows too much. So like he was leaving DNA everywhere.
Left and right.
But they just like, it was the lack of communication between states, right?
Yes, between states and jurisdictions, which is why VICAP played such an important role for people who don't know VICAP or don't watch anything about crime. It's the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, I believe is VICAP. And that's a nationwide program that you can stick, all of these markers in for these crimes, and it spits back out if you've connected with any other victims or killers for that matter. But he knew from his true crime reading as a child about fingerprints and fiber evidence. So he always made sure to not leave fingerprints and fiber evidence, which is crazy.
Don't leave
DNA,
fibers.
But semen everywhere,
I was
always.
Like, he left a lot, apparently.
But again, DNA wasn't widely used until the 90s. Yeah. So once he was already arrested?
Done.
Yeah, after he was arrested. So I thought, I was like, wait.
Which time?
Good God.
Which
That's
time? Yeah,
true, too. Emma, this comes out February 26th.
Oh, right at the end
of Black History Month.
I mean, it's still technically Black History.
All right, Emma, well, thank you so much for coming back on to talk with us about this monster.
Thanks.
Everyone else, like, subscribe, download, share with your friends, review, rate, whatever all the things are. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Criminal Giants.